Whoa, good morning. Good morning, WODprep Nation. It is Tuesday, August 13th. Let's party. Wow. Reverb. Hope everyone's feeling good this morning, and I hope everyone is starting to kind of like get their flow back into normal routine after the CrossFit games. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for being here. Always early. So I don't know. I feel like this is just like a good time, right? Like Europe doesn't get a lot of stuff early. See, on cue. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. Good morning. And this is kind of just like my time before my little man wakes up. So yeah, Augustus, you are on all the time. Augustus, do you sleep? But yeah, I kind of like getting on early just to chat, and to do this. I think we have one with John later today in about 4 hours. And so this is just like an easy time. I can probably do it solo, and just chat with everybody. Kind of use this to just, be like an open forum platform. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. It just seems like a good time, right? It's also not to compete with everybody either, right? Everyone's on throughout the day, especially right now. So, all right. So what's everyone drinking this morning? It's 6:45 Central Time. So if it's the morning for you, what's your coffee? What's your coffee of choice? Let me see. I'm going to keep pushing my coffee of choice, Sophia Coffee Co., because I want a sponsorship. Whoa. T3 coming in hot. All right. So Sophia Coffee Co. All right. Amazing. Okay. SOPHICO.com. All right. They ship everywhere in the States. And guys, when I tell you that they are in the like most redneck backwoods, middle of nowhere town, I don't think you can understand. And so they make an excellent cold brew. And yeah. So give it a try. I'm really working hard to get that sponsorship here. Maybe I'll have a code at some point. So give it a try. They will surprise you for sure. So anyways, all right. Jeff, are you the Jeff, the PT Jeff, like in the Instagram world? Okay. All right. What do we got? Yorkshire tea. Tea is gross. If anyone has ever watched Ted Lasso, that's how I feel about tea. Right on there. Right. That's it. Yeah. Man, that's so weird. There's a Jeff GR, I don't even know how to say your name. Giardina. That's probably not right. Same name, kind of looks like you. PT, big Instagram following, but is in the CrossFit world too. Yorkshire tea, blah, decaf. What's the point of drinking decaf coffee? I just feel like I don't understand it. No, coffee doesn't taste that good, right? I mean, I guess I say that, but I drink bourbon. And so it's probably the same, right? Like, because bourbon doesn't just taste that good. I did this for a while, Brandon. Like I went cold plunge, no coffee after my artery stuff. But I can't stay away from it too long. All right. What are we talking about, guys? What do you guys want to talk about? I'm an open book. We can talk about all the stuff. We can also just talk about like not CrossFit game shit if you would like to. I think that would be nice for my mental capacity. Okay. Who gets second place? I mean, I think who gets second place if Mal, Christy, Ermo, and Laura were competing? This year really did benefit Christy. I think she would have done pretty well, but I think 2 more years of competitive training with structure. I don't think anyone comes close to Mal. I think there's a big separation between her and Laura. Let's see who gets first. I mean, I don't think it's a question. I think it's Laura. So you, Amba, you only drink decaf? What about, so like no stimulants? Shane, okay, you brought up bourbon. What's your favorite? I have like my high class stuff where I'm fortunate enough to, have tried like some good stuff. But my like favorite, like under $50 bottle is Angel's Envy for sure. Thanks for the coverage. You're welcome. You're welcome. What's up, baby? Travis will be back on the podcast eventually. Yeah, I want to be, you asked the question up here, DS, before coming in hot. I remember, maybe not. Oh, here we go. T3. Here's what I've learned. People are miserable and projecting their hatred on the internet. The number of everyday CrossFitters saying vile things is, yeah, for sure. I think it's a really toxic place right now. It's what I was saying yesterday or throughout the weekend. And I think that, it'll calm down. So love a good morning show. Good. We're trying to make this maybe a couple times a week. Keep moving down. I want to be convinced to not be horribly angry. I don't know if that's needed. I think it's okay to be angry at HQ. I think it's totally fine to be mad at them. I mean, it's a clear, lack of preparation at the highest level. And so I think that's not a big deal. If you can see right there, I live in Florida. I'm a huge Miami Hurricanes fan. So go Canes. Maybe this year we'll win a bowl game. Let's see. Drink apple juice and pretend like I'm drinking whiskey. I think that's pretty nice. So I was at, we did the Bourbon Trail at some point 2 years ago, and double oaked is just so hard to get your hands on. I like it. Everyone's a Weller guy. That's a good one. I like it. Let's see. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Bring back Catholics versus convicts, dude. No better time in college football. Let's see. Whoa. Hey, it is not. It's a little rough, but it's okay. I'm a Dolphins fan too. So it's just been like a long, like, I don't know, 20 years or so, but it's okay. We're on the way. All right. People are displaying all the phases of grief in the comments. It's time for people to understanding. Yeah, it'll calm down. Anger is there. What you do? I don't know if you're talking to me, Augustus, or someone in the chat. Good to see lots of CrossFit athletes on Instagram share their emotions and sentiments that CrossFit should have done better. Yeah, it seems like there's very much a united front. And so this is what I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit today was the united front is very much targeted at this situation specifically, and HQ's lack of, preparation and consideration for the athletes, right? And so what I am enjoying is probably a very loose word, is that it's not attacking the methodology. The gyms aren't revolting. People aren't leaving the gym. I reached out to 10 gym owners in the past 24 hours. Like, hey, how's your gym feeling? What's the morale like? What's the conversation like? Who's talking about what? And overwhelmingly all 10 gyms, with some gyms being competitive and some gyms not being competitive. There's no conversation in the gym about it, right? And I think that's a good thing, right? And not to the sense of like, I think that I think it's good that it's not permeating into the gym and the everyday CrossFitter and the methodology and the affiliate design. And so that makes me happy that it's not going to turn into like a 2020 where we have this like mass exodus. Yeah, I appreciate. Not enjoy, maybe appreciate. Yep, exactly. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did see this. Hiller thinks it is. He has a different view on it, right? He feels like they should have stopped, and that's within his right to think that. But I don't think this is going to permeate into the gyms at all. So, so yeah, I think the clip definitely gave them. I don't think anyone's afraid to speak out at this point. CrossFit is well past the days of completely like blacklisting people. And so the athletes will continue to speak out, and I think that's what they're going to do. Yeah. This is an interesting. I'd really enjoy Chris Henshaw's outlook on it. I mean, he gave an outlook. He talked to Savan for an hour about this, right? And so the only reason he would have an outlook would be on a programming design. Okay. And so if we're leaning into what Jeff said about being dangerous, I don't think he's talking. I mean, I do think he's talking about potentially the actual programming itself, but I don't think that's the problem. And I don't think that's a problem at all, right? There's never a problem with the programming. The programming has gotten easier over the years, right? If you look at intensity and volume, and a design that's like, can you finish it? Not who can finish it the fastest. And so, so the design of a run swim is not inherently dangerous. It is inherently more dangerous than a swim run, but it is not inherently dangerous in like at a surface level. Okay. Now the preparation and the safety protocols to make sure the athletes are safe during that time and monitored and watched, that's a whole nother story. But the actual setup of a run swim isn't just dangerous. Okay. Right. Kevin Ogar, like severed his spine in 2013 or 14, but we still snatch heavy in workouts. We still snatch heavy under fatigue, and nothing changed. Right. And so it's just, that's part of it. And so I don't think the game should change the structure of doing hard stuff and doing things that are very, like on the brink of, like peak of human performance. That would disservice the games and disservice the athletes and the spectacle that they put on. But we can still monitor it better and be safer in general. So, right. Hiller said that 90% of the athletes. Yeah, exactly. So his logic doesn't make sense. I agree. He's super upset, which within his right. Yeah. I've listened to pretty much every thing that Matt has said about CrossFit, and I just don't remember him making this a big deal. But I did hear Chris or Henshaw talk about this. Has the programming become easy? Yeah, that's a really good question. I think the programming is a little easier, right? And I think that's just a byproduct, probably because we are fitter and we can't just keep moving the goalposts forever, even if Dave might want to or whatever that may be. So, it's a unique situation, but I think there's probably, some give and take in this. That's a really good point, Urel. We'll probably say that right. Lazar had a known issue. He had a medical event. I don't know how valid the medical event in Dubai is. Um, uh, uh, but or if he had a known issue or whatever it was, right? But again, I don't think that point is relevant, right? Of like whatever it was. The point is he should have been seen. He should have had the chance to be saved. I think that's like where we're at, and there needs to be accountability because that wasn't possible. I hope this is my hope. I hope that they are as transparent as humanly possible. That's it, right? And that's all we can hope for, right? Third party investigations usually do help that some. You know, private equity is involved, right? So I don't think we're going to uncover, too many skeletons in the closet outside of just this, like the structural of designing the games and safety and, that kind of stuff. So who knows? Yeah, I have no idea. I was level 1, thankful my box development program to advance us, but one weekend at a conference. Yeah, I think this is such an interesting point of coaching that it's still usually better than 99% of people that have a base level NSCA or CSCS certification, because you actually get training on movements, right? All fitness and all personal training, and all movement coaching, etc., is done by experience and repetitions and time, right? And so you can have all the, guys, I'm CSCS certified. I have an undergrad in exercise physiology with a specialization with sports psychology. I have a doctorate in physical therapy. Okay. I have USAW. I have level 2 CrossFit. I've been in collegiate strength and conditioning settings and taught some of the fittest guys and strongest athletes in the football world. And, and I have all that experience and so all of my movement knowledge comes from being in the CrossFit gym, coaching under good coaches, and none of my degrees. Right? I went to school for like 8 years, and post high school, 8 years. Okay, I have a doctorate in front of my name, and I didn't learn shit about movement. Okay, so the L1 I think is a very good thing, and I think coaches are much more prepared than the average coming out. But it's all about time. It doesn't matter what things you have after your name. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. Right? This concept here is no one wins this is like, oh, you can coach handstand push-ups here. Someone can have no degrees and no anything and only have experience coaching in the gym, and be the best coach ever, right? With nothing to show for it from a paper standpoint. I hope so, right? I think Luca will, for sure. It seems that that's for sure going to happen. All right. All right. Moving our way down. Triathlons. What is CrossFit appetite for risk? Would an alternative open water swimming pool? Yeah. I mean, maybe, right? It's clearly a lower risk, but again, is that the problem? I don't think that's the problem personally. I know people are really leaning into that, and the outside CrossFit world is really leaning into that. I don't think that's the point. I don't think that is the open water swim isn't the problem, right? It was the preparation to monitor and secure the athletes while they're doing the open water swim. That's the problem. And so, right, if the lifeguard was paying attention, got him out sooner, it could have been for sure, 100%, right? Yeah, I don't know. Constantly Varied gave a nice explanation how third party. I don't know how any of that works. That's right. Let's go, baby. I was sad. You took my topic for today, and you didn't invite me on your podcast. Keeping it real. Yeah. New coaches always suck. I mean, that's a relative. Some people are just naturals at it if they've done it a lot of times, right? If they have a lot of personal experience, and you can relay it into, and you can relay it into your coaching and how you help others. But yeah, it doesn't. It takes time for sure. Um, yeah, I 100%. Oh, we didn't see swimming last year, right? Yeah, there was no swimming last year. So, or I mean, I guess there was swimming. That doesn't really count, does it? I mean, it was like a sprint thing. But I think that was 2 years ago. I can't even remember. Was there swimming last year? Um, Games, workouts, 2023. Nope. Um, Intervals, ski bag, medley. No, there was no swimming last year. So it's not the first time that we haven't had swimming. So, and I agree. I don't think there'll be swimming next year. Always a Miami fan till I die. Let's go. No fair weather fans over here. All right. Yeah, you would say you're a decent coach. No fitness related degree and pretty decent coach. Do I think athletes will go to Rogue? 100%. Rogue is a different entity. The athletes always rave about the professionalism and how the athletes are treated at Rogue. If anything, I think they go to Rogue in spite of all of this, right? To show that this is how it's to be done. This is how it should be, ran, et cetera, et cetera. 100%, no doubt in my mind, everyone goes. Everyone that wants to go in general, right? Now, some people might not go purely because of mourning or competing, right? But like as far as a protest against CrossFit, I don't think anyone doesn't go. Let's see. Here we go. Keep moving down. Any water is dangerous. Do you think they'll swim at Wadapalooza? Yeah, that is the whole purpose of being on in Bayfront, right? And yeah, I 100%. So yeah, I think there's no doubt that they swim at Wadapalooza. That's the whole purpose of it. That was like they were like one of the first events to swim that wasn't the CrossFit Games. Is swimming in the 100 words? Isn't it just like all fitness stuff? Um, I feel like Rogue's results this year. Nah, we're gonna talk about that later. So tune back in around 10:30, so 3 hours ish from now. Me and John are gonna talk about does this year, how to feel about this year moving forward. Really, does this year have an asterisk? Which Keeping It Real did, but we're gonna do it again. It is what it is. Um, uh, Are you from Florida? Uh, um, oh yeah. All right. Who wants to talk about this? I am totally down to talk about anything, not the CrossFit Games. Um, so any interest in talking about off-season recovery and approach to next training cycle? So this depends on where you are, right? If you are just assuming we're a games athlete coming off of the games season, right? And you're not doing Rogue. Um, um, uh, the way that I usually take the off season. So if let's just assume you're a quarterfinal athlete, because this makes it a little bit better. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Jeff. Run, swim, row, etc. Hard and fast. I love it. So you're a quarterfinal athlete. Your season ended back in April. And so what does the off season generally look like, right? So the off season should be pretty similar, and this is how I look at it. I like to segment seasons, right? I don't like to do a lot of pure CrossFit year round, especially because the primary of my athlete is a master's athlete, not a younger athlete, someone that needs to continue to work on foundations and the basics of the sport. And so the way we usually break it down is After the season, we take a 1 to 2 week full rest out of the gym completely, no fitness. I like to completely reset. And then usually what we do is we have a 4 to 6 week post-season cycle, where this post-season cycle is a lot of joint integrity stuff. So like full range of motion, kind of like the weird stuff that you usually don't do. And so, try and stay out of the comments for a second so I can focus, because everyone in here turns into a coach real quick. It is a season. It's our season, right? So it's 6 weeks long. That's pretty much it. That's a season. That's really what it is. You can keep training for other events, but if we're talking about getting ready for the next year, no, actually, this is an interesting thing. So we'll go back to it. Okay. So 4 to 6 weeks to kind of focus on, I like to do a lot of jump work. I like to do a lot of rotation stuff. I don't like to put the barbell in the hands. I don't like to do kipping gymnastics. So, holds, hangs, end range of motion work, things like that for 4 to 6 weeks, right? And then we start kind of like our off-season phase. And usually the off-season phase is where we focus on strength. But I do like to take that 4 to 6 weeks for full no kipping. We can do some like strict upper body work, bench press, or, if you're not having any issues or pain or shoulder issues, and, bodybuilding type work, and just kind of like getting the itch back, right? To train really, really hard, right? What people don't realize is that, remember, you don't get fitter by training, you get fitter by recovering, right? And when you're not a professional athlete, every year you need to restart the year, in my opinion, right? You don't just keep doing the same exact stuff all year long. If we did, we wouldn't get any better. But if we did get better doing that, then everyone would just infinitely and linearly improve all the time. So I take that like kind of off season 4 to 6 weeks as a reset. Different structure to the training season. We still do some conditioning, probably a lot of running, just because we don't usually do a lot of running leading into the open and quarterfinals because we know we're not going to see it. And then we go into the off season. Usually it's a strength bias, right? So it depends on how much we squatted during the year, but I usually try to take my first strength phase not in a squat phase, and just because most times we are lifting throughout the year and in some form of a squat cycle for the other 40 weeks. So I try to do a single leg or like box step ups or heavy single leg work. You can talk about if it's you like to talk about imbalances, which I think is bullshit. But I like to kind of move away from your just like back squat, front squat cycle, right? Or deadlift, sorry, I got a message from sorry. Okay. Sorry, I had a emergency text come through. So going to that, I like to do Olympic positional work, right? Improving positions, improving your pulls, improving your overhead squat, your front rack, your jerk positions, things like that. And so that's generally where we start. And then we start to reintegrate conditioning, right? And so the conditioning, depending on the athlete, will dictate what that looks like. But I like to keep it more aerobic, less intense earlier in the season. It's hard to maintain intensity throughout the year. So we can do a full episode on it, but that's usually my general approach. What? Okay. And then, it always depends on the athlete, kind of like where they are, what the responses were, where your finishes were. But what I don't like to do is I don't like to just start attacking your weaknesses like the day the quarterfinals is over. So I like to give time for the athletes to kind of reset, get the itch back, right? But like finishing quarterfinals and then a week later just going right at, like a ton of muscle up conditioning or, really, really heavy back squats, I don't think is the play, right? I think you need a little bit more time to reset, build more foundational stuff. Okay. All right, let's see. All right, what else do we want to talk about? I have, I don't know, 30 minutes, maybe more if we're flowing. Yeah, 2 weeks no gym. It's good for you. It's good for all of us, right? Usually it's 1 week. It's usually 1 week because I know people can't handle 2. And then even in that 1 week, it's just like, all right, just do low effort stuff, but it is good for you. Remember, guys, we don't get fitter in the gym. We only get fitter when we sleep, eat, and recover. All right. Madeline, have a good day. I assume you're probably gone. That was 5 minutes ago. All right, let's see. I wanted to ask this. I asked this earlier, so there's more people watching now. Does anyone have conversations in the gym about what's going on? Do you feel like there is any type of outcry or response from the gym of being uncertain if they want to continue CrossFit or coming to class, or is your gym considering de-affiliating or whatever, protesting, etc.? What's up, Craig? All right. All right. What do we want to talk about? Yeah. And so I think this is the general sentiment, right? Like I said earlier, I asked a lot of gyms and they just didn't, that just isn't part of the conversation. And so, so it's just not I don't think it's going to be this big fallout like there was in 2020 with Greg, which I'm happy for. I'm happy it's not going to get like that, but I am happy the athletes seem to be this united front. No one talked about it. Good. You two in the chat, be nice to each other. Probably a little bit of both. They for sure missed it. I mean, but it was also clear that there was a lot less people in the water. But again, I think it could have looked that way because it was a straight line, right? And so because it was a straight line, it looked much different than a turnaround, which it's always been a turnaround. And so because there was a straight line across, it was different, right? It just was a different design. And what was needed was different. 100%. The general feeling is that the games are so far removed from regular gym goers. Yeah, I agree. I think it's even becoming more and more. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like the games is what brings a lot of people in, or it did for a long time. It's what brought me in, or it's what kept me. And so I think they can be so beneficial to each other that it makes me sad that they're not more intertwined. But maybe right now, maybe that's probably a good thing. I feel like if gyms de-affiliated from, they were going to anyways, and this was the easy thing. Yeah, I agree. And so it doesn't seem like that's the case. I know some people think so. I think John Woolley posted that someone posted that. I think that's a very unique gym situation for sure. We have talked about it. Yeah, I bet it was a long conversation in your garage with in the mirror, Ural. Pat's pissed for sure. Pat, and to be fair, Pat has always, this is a new tone for Pat. He has said something similar to this a lot of years, very consistently, right? Obviously this is much different. But so I think I think he's going to lead the charge 100%. But Pat is usually pretty upset with the programming. Always, he always has something to complain about. But obviously with validity, more validity this year. Vindicate, taking action when no one has all the facts. Yeah, 100%. Right. And so I think we just have to kind of like sit back and wait. John said it yesterday that we're going to have to sit back and wait way longer than everyone wants to. And you just have to be okay with that. It's just part of it. It's just what it's going to be. Let's see, other than an odd rope. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's ever been the case. I don't think the games is moving in that direction, kind of like what Pat said is like, we're going to war, right? And so I think the main play or the main problem is not so much, it's nothing about the programming or the direction of the programming. It's the safety around the programming, right? So, yeah, one gym posted their deal field, but their open athlete highlight was Lazar. So yeah, so it does seem, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. This is good. I think all proceeds are going to Lazar's GoFundMe or directly to Luca and the family. So make sure to head over to GoRuck and get a shirt. That's my birthday, by the way, 8/16. I will be 30. What year is it? I have no idea. 2024. I'll be 34. So in case you guys don't know, in case we want to talk about other things, I'm a physical therapist. I'm a currently practicing physical therapist. You can always ask me things about injury and pain and training while I enjoy being a podcast host here. This is only, I don't know, like 40 days in the making. And so I'm a coach first, a PT before that. I've been doing this a lot of years. So we have a lot of information to share. I can answer all the questions, or I can try to answer all the questions. Okay. So if you guys ever want to talk about that, I think I'm going to start doing some like pain and injury shows, call it like the waiting room. What do you guys think? He's sleeping. We're going to be on at 10:30 to talk more sports stuff. I like to do this kind of morning show. It's hard to get anyone on at 6 a.m. So I like this show just to kind of interact with the chat, Jeff. But good question. Thanks. He'll be on later. So Augustus, so on the GoFundMe page, it says, it has this thing where it's like donation protected. I don't know what that means. Percent share. I don't know what this means here. I don't know what this, we guarantee a full refund. Oh, never mind. That's irrelevant. Disregard. So I thought that meant that like it was fully, but GoFundMe does take a percentage. Let's see, GoFundMe percentage take, let's see, 2.9%, right? So GoFundMe made a lot of money off of this, but 3%, that's pretty much, so what's interesting with that is that's pretty much a processing fee, right? So I'm not 100% sure if that is like post-processing fee, or like the 2.9% and then the processing fee taken away from it, is there too, right? So it could be like more like 5%, but I'm not 100% sure. The percentage on GoFundMe take the transaction fees It's always free to start and manage to help us cover payment processing. Oh, so it's just payment processing. So, I mean, they're probably only making like 1% or maybe just a little bit less. So that's what it says on their website. Partially torn calf. Depends on how long it was. So partially torn calf, right? So it depends on how long it was and where you are in the phase. But if you're out of like the first week, calf raises, toe walks, single leg calf raises on a step, eccentric loading is the key, heavy, slow work. Once calf raises are comfortable and you're starting to load a little bit more, then you can start doing a little bit of like pogo hops, bounding, single leg pogo hops, and then progress back into running and jogging slow. And I would start then, if you want to start jumping, seated box jumps, or seated just vertical jumps in general. How would you start training? Just progressive overload, right? I would, a couple days a week, try to get out there and walk 8 to 10 to 12 miles, and just start to slowly progress there. You probably don't need to do any type of 24-mile hikes, obviously, maybe one, because that's just so long. That's like 6 hours of hiking. And so, I would just start adding in a day of your training where you put on a pack of whatever you're going to be carrying, and just do a couple hours, and then progress that up to, 12 or 15 miles at the most, maybe a couple days a week. And then I think you'll be fine. I need way more information here. Coach, why do people tend to elevate their dominant shoulder? Oh man, there's a lot of questions. Holy smokes. All right. Why do people tend to elevate their dominant shoulder? We have differences left to right. And so what we've done in the PT world is we've done a really good job of creating diagnoses that don't mean shit and that don't have any validity. Okay. If you're asymptomatic and you don't have any pain, it's not anything to worry about, right? Unless it's just like egregious, right? Unless it's like this. Okay. Usually if there is a shoulder elevation, it just doesn't quite move as freely as the other shoulder. But if you have no pain and the lockout is still there, then it's not something I would even address, right? Like just because there's a difference left to right or something looks different, then it doesn't mean it needs to be addressed, right? There's a minimal effective dose. But if it's something that does need to be addressed, right? Always start with carries and holds, hangs, single arm work. I've had an overactive QL. That's an interesting thing. I think the QL is basically like the scapegoat. I bet you don't have an overactive QL. That's probably just a PT, like I said up here, creating a diagnosis so they can give you treatment. I assume it probably lights up on like high hinge workouts and you feel like your back blows up. If that's the case, then, I like to increase a lot of hinge stuff, a lot of hinge progression, cross body work, single leg hinge stuff, single arm, unilateral loading, GHD, hip extensions, holds, things like that, things that are going to get it to increase tolerance, right? But overactive muscles are not a thing. Some people just blow up in the case of, certain workouts, right? But the concept of overactivity or like underactivity is just false. There's no validity there whatsoever. Absolutely not. We don't support this trash. If you guys, so we'll pause it for 2 seconds. If you guys have real questions that we can't answer here, cj@wodprep.com. I'd love to chat with you. We offer remote one-on-one rehab services, remote coaching to keep athletes in the gym and keep them training, not to sell anything here, but I'll also email you back and forth and we can chat about anything. And these are all very quick, right? So take this as you want it. This is my 30-second pitch for each of these pathologies that we're coming through. Grip work is the number one thing that I like to work when I have like a medial epicondylitis or tendonitis in the elbow. Forearm exercises, maybe a little bit of forearm stretching. But what's going to be painful is like grip and pull. So I like to do grip work. I like to do forearm exercises. I like to do a lot of carries and holds again, and then find pulling patterns that are light enough that don't really piss it off. You're going to piss it off a little bit, but as long as you keep your pain response in that 2 to 3 to 4 range under a 5 out of 10, then it's going to be a good stimulus. I actually don't know much about this Amba energy. Tell me what you know about calf compartment syndrome. If you actually have compartment syndrome, compartment syndrome doesn't come and go like that. That's not how it works. It would come and there's a blood flow or a return issue, right? A venous return issue. And so then the blood is pooling and then it's going to swell and pop, or, the muscles will deteriorate, et cetera. And that's an emergency issue. This sounds like it's potentially more of like a arterial issue in the sense of, like a insufficient arterial supply, right? So like as soon as you get to a point and you start to get really achy, that's usually like an artery issue, not a compartment syndrome. Transfer fees, but they could have cut a check too. All right. I think everything's the benefit of being an affiliate, right? So, we're only on here because of CrossFit, right? Like that's it. It's the only reason why we're here. And so we want to support the whole methodology across the board. And that's what your affiliate fee does, right? There are affiliate resources now that are improving, but man, guys, I think being a part of this bigger picture is everything. And obviously you can do that without being an affiliate, but I personally think it's silly, right? Like it's not a lot. It's not super expensive. They have monthly payment options, and I think you can take advantage of all the things. That was weird. Okay. SCLR movements to support lower back issues, round L1. Whenever, and this is a very global, gross response. Whenever I have anyone with back issues, I make them hinge more and use their back more. Most of the time we have, back issues during like deep squatting or hinging, high volume, or like raking the leaves or whatever it is. But we get lulled into this phase where we just avoid the patterns of discomfort. So I like to hinge more, time under tension, bracing, cross body work. So I also like to really promote a lot of rounding in the lumbar, which I know is completely off kilter of what most people do. They feel like they have to move perfect, but we never actually move perfect under fatigue. So in all of my rehab stuff, everything of what we do is, or at least all the base foundation stuff, is about rounding the back more under a little bit of load. Jefferson curls, crossbody RDLs, deficit deadlifts, things like that, right? Single arm, unilateral loading, right? So that we can increase tolerance to all of these different patterns. Discectomy, whenever I do any kind of ballistic, I end up in the bed excruciating pain. No, I don't think you're screwed. There's probably a lot of nuance to whatever that is. So ballistics and jump patterns are the end of rehab, right? So basically you have to work your way, in my opinion, backwards and find patterns that are less fast, slower, more controlled, build those up more, overload them further, and then slowly progress back into it, right? Most people, they feel like they are, like they feel better and then they try the thing, but they skip a bunch of steps of the rehab, kind of like the progression process, right? Like if you want to squat 400 pounds, but you only squat 200, you wouldn't just keep taking swings of 400 because it wouldn't work. You would continue to build up. So I'm assuming there's probably a lot of steps there that we miss in general. There's no support in this at all whatsoever. The evidence is trash for proper shoe support. We can be barefoot just as beneficial as we can be in, runners to squat. It's not a big deal. Haha, we're all fucked up, doc. Yeah, it is what it is, but we're not though, right? Like my whole bit of the movement doctor was empower my patient, right? Like, so when they come in, I usually never talk about what's wrong. I only talk about what they're able to do. And that's the direction that their rehab and their training goes every single time. On a training note, I've started doing morning walks around 7, 2 to 3 miles, and hitting the gym around noon. Yeah, I think you find your flow, right? So my body's thanking me when I do for 6 a.m. workouts. Yeah, you find your flow. We know most people work out better later in the day, right? And that's usually solely because they're a little more warm. Okay. And they just feel general better. Amber, I think I went to that. I think I answered this a little bit. It sounds very hard for it to be compartment syndrome. Sounds more of like a like a PAD, like a peripheral arterial disease, something like that. So like when you need more blood supply, you're not getting quite enough blood to the area. So almost like the opposite. Let's see. Affiliate part, you pay for the brand. Do I feel like not testing swimming before the games is a big flaw in the programming? No, I think it's impossible, right? It's online testing. So, it's impossible, right? There's no option, right? I think the games is for all of the other types of fitness to round out the test, right? In the open, quarterfinals, and semifinals, right? We test like all the purest CrossFit work. And so, and so I think the games rounds it out to fill in all of the other fitness modalities that we're not able to test inside of a convention center. Yeah, Doug, meniscus tears are super common. We can always train on them. You just find what you can tolerate. I like box squats that are a little heavier, maybe higher range of motion, and then working some full range of motion work within a low pain response, right? So as long as the pain is like a 3 or 4 and no more, and it's not progressing up, then you can do it. Avoid probably running and jumping for a little bit until it's pain-free. So start with squatting, increase heavier squatting to tolerance, and then slowly progress from there. Pat said, "This isn't war; it's a sport." I agree, but they do ultra triathlons in the desert, right? And so it's part, the challenge and the do hard shit part of it is part of the game, right? So I think that's how this works, right? Like if it wasn't hard, then everyone would do it, right? Everyone would be good. And so I think that's the whole point of it. So, anyways, cool. Sweet. Well, hey, thanks guys. Does anyone have anything else? Any other questions? I think I answered all the rehab questions that came through, in a really short amount of time. If you liked anything that I said, or you are in the Colorado area, you're looking for a competition in October, go to Iron Games, scan the QR code. We have individual and teams of 3 same-sex divisions scaled as well, and a master's division. So if you're in the Colorado area or you want to take a nice vacation, sign up there. You get a free pair of Strike Movement new colorway shoes for your sign up fee, right? Every athlete's going to get it. And so, can I get up on the WODprep War workouts? Only if you sign up for WODprep programming. That's it. You guys all have to leave Sentinel. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to start a war. No, No, I don't know. We'll probably do something where we start pushing it out to the, like doing a community version of it in some capacity. Augustus did it beforehand, but I don't know how we're going to do it. I got to figure it out. Gus did one of the workouts. He had to prove that he could clean a 200-pound bag. Let's see. I wanted to stay on for an hour, so let's grind it out for 5 more minutes, huh? Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Me and John are going to get on at 10:30. Everyone listening, so make sure to pop back on. That's 3 hours from now. We're going to talk about, is there an asterisk at this CrossFit Games? Yes or no? I'm going to ruffle his feathers a little bit, so it'll be a good little chat. Yeah, if you guys want us to cover anything as well, I'm always open to ideas and feedback. And so, yeah. Yeah, this is a great point, Clooney's. The one big issue with new industries is that they don't know what they don't know. They often find out. Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, I think there is a lot of, who said this? Chris? No. Savan said this, and he was like, CrossFit grew and it wasn't ready to grow. It grew without earning it. It grew financially and influentially around the world without earning that right, and they weren't ready for it. And they outgrew themselves for so many years, so fast, and so they've just been playing catch up the entire time, right? And that's just the case. And so I think we're probably finally getting to the point where it's coming to its like we're catching up to it, as we say that, and we had this huge, tragedy, but it slowed for sure, right? Whatever it slowed or whatever it is, but it grew so fast, and I think that we were all spoiled of what it could be and what it should be, and so we just have this altered look of where it should be professionally, and we just aren't there yet. Hopefully we're getting there now. So I agree. All right. I go golf. We'll just go with that. Not as much as I'd like to since I had a kid, but I do go golf, preferably more. I was probably a 10 handicap before my little man was born. And now I'm like back to like a 14 or 15. Let's see. I noticed American flag. America, heck yeah. That's my father's flag. He was in the Navy. He passed away a few years ago. Any opinion on hip impingement therapy? So hip impingements are super common, right? Just pain in the bottom of a squat. I don't think it's a range of motion issue. My approaches to it are twofold. I like to do lots of hip flexion isometrics. So like psoas marches with the mini band across the feet. I like to basically put a bar at hip level and drive your knee into it and hold. So I like to do a lot of hip flexion work, like in standing. And then I like to also start to reintegrate squat patterns up to tolerance, right? So if it hurts in the bottom of the squat, then we'll find a range of depth that we can tolerate for our squatting, and then reduce the speed into the bottom, right? So no full cleans or full snatches or bottoming out on front squats or wall balls or thrusters, etc. And so finding a middle ground and kind of taking all of our squat patterns out of conditioning and fatigue and putting them all into a controlled sets and reps without the clock and under fatigue sort of approach. And then you can do all the glute stuff, right? Like lateral work and posterior chain stuff and whatnot. But I like to go kind of right at it, right? But unless you have just an egregious squat pattern, it's probably not a range of motion or a flexibility or stretching thing. Hips also, I think one of the biggest things people are like, oh, I have a hip impingement. My hips are really, really tight. right? Well, the hip impingement hurts when the muscle's at its shortest, right? When you flex in the bottom of a squat. So usually it's a contraction tolerance issue, not so much of a range of motion issue, because that wouldn't make sense, right? Like it would hurt when the muscle is extended. So that's what I like to do with hip impingement in general, or like even like hip labral tears, same thing. So we try to just approach it with like graded exposure. So like find a tolerating pattern that you can do, and then just kind of progress it back to your goal pattern, right? We call it the step method. One day we'll do a show on it fully and how we approach it to all injuries, right? Instead of worrying so much about the diagnosis or the pathology, we just take your symptoms at presentation, and how you're showing at that time, right? We find a pattern that you can tolerate, and then we just kind of climb the steps getting to the pattern that you can, or that your goal pattern is, right? So if it's a heavy back squat, we would just reduce it back, maybe reduce the load. Does that make it better? Maybe a little, not enough. Reduce the range of motion. Does that make it better? Maybe not enough. Go to a box squat, change the pattern, goblet squat or front squat or back squat verse, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's our usual approach. And then we just sort of build our way back up the ladder or the steps. So, cool. All right. Last chance. Any other questions? If not, we're going to pop off. Not a smart dude. I actually have taken like the easiest approach to rehab. I like simple things. I'm a pretty simple guy. And so, rehab, it can be really simple. Pain is exceptionally complex. So people are like, I know why you're in pain. It's like, you fucking have no idea why they're in pain. Pain is a multifaceted, multi-level experience, from like psychosocial influences, like what your doctor said, what you read on Google, what your belief patterns are, what your prior experiences are, mixed with a little bit of mechanical stuff, right? So pain is really complex. So what we've done is we've tried to avoid focusing on 100% why you're in pain, of like the diagnostic patterns. We have no idea what's going on the inside. I went to school for a long time, and our ability to diagnose is really poor. Some people will say theirs is really good. They're full of shit. And I will take anyone toe to toe on that. It's more about meeting the person where they are, understanding what they're trying to do, and getting a good history, right? Then you can usually find out why they're in pain or what's going on. The history is better than the diagnosis, right? So we find out what they've been doing. Usually you can find out why they had this sudden change in sensory responses, i.e. having pain, right? Remember, pain is an experience. It's not a direct correlation to mechanical damage or structural injury, right? Pain does not equal injury, right? Pain is an experience. Literally the definition of pain from the IASP. So pain defined IASP, just so I can read it for you. Okay. Duke, stop. Shut up. Sorry, my dog's loud. So we'll read the definition. Okay. Pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage, or described in terms such as damage. So what that means is that there are a lot of factors that play a role, and very few of those factors are actual structural and tissue-based stuff. So we'll end on that. Maybe that will spark some conversation for some other stuff. I like talking about that stuff way more than I like talking about CrossFit drama. But I know everyone wants to talk about CrossFit drama, and that's why you're here. A couple things, do my due diligence. Again, thank you to Box Basics and Born Primitive. Box Basics, WODprep 20. I think it's still good till the end of the week if you want. Love what I hear. Where can I book? Doug, email me at cj@wodprep.com, and we will we can chat further. Yes, hit that like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. You know, it's funny. I 100% thought all the people that did this were like paid or like just part of the show on other shows, but it's not. You guys are just awesome. So thanks for supporting the chat and telling the chat to hit that like and subscribe, etc. What was I saying? I totally fucking forgot. Oh, my sponsors. I know a lot of people are focused on training and improving their ability. Remember, recovery is everything, right? So we don't get fitter when we train, we get fitter when we sleep. If you struggle to sleep, but you feel like you're doing all the other stuff well, third Z is the way to go. Non-hormonal based, that means no melatonin, right? Based sleep supplement, collagen protein. And it's something I've taken for a long time. Justine, the owner, and Adam are good friends, and they've made a really, really good product. Science is everything when it comes to rehab, and you can, Broken Science has their stuff and their issues there, but this is very science based, right? And so a lot of what I do is research driven and proven facts. I don't support shit that I don't believe in at all whatsoever. So Third Z is the way to go if you're looking for any sleep supplement. It's better than all the other ones in the market solely on the fact that it doesn't have melatonin. We shouldn't be supplementing melatonin, guys and girls, at any time, right? If you can avoid it. There are definitely those cases, but even so, those cases need to be way lower than your average melatonin on the market too. There's way too much. Whoa, look at that, $5. I think that's my first live chat in a minute. My man. Thanks for the donation there, Clooney's. And so, yeah. Yeah, we won't push any personal product stuff, currently. But yeah, if you guys have any other questions, pain and injury, I love to talk about it. I love to do more shows about that kind of stuff. But if you do have something that you want to talk personally about, if I wasn't able to answer it on the podcast, CJ at WODprep.com. We have physical therapists on staff that do CrossFit coaching, and we have created a very unique situation where we provide training and rehab in one deliverable. And so our athletes come to us for rehab and they stay with us for training. All right. Injured myself putting a bathtub into the back of my truck. That's a big one. Something in my arm snapped like a rubber band. 6 weeks, any real weight, worked range of motion. Boom. Love it. Progressive overload, graded exposure. That's how it works. All injuries are recoverable. Just remember, this is one thing I tell most of my athletes. If you feel like you're always struggling with injuries, you're probably close to batting 1,000, meaning that you've recovered from every injury, even if it's recurred or started again. You've gotten better, and it will get better moving forward, right? Don't let it get you down. Pain and injury suck, but it's super common in what we do. That's just part of the game. It's better than sitting on the couch and being a piece of shit. So keep moving. Don't get discouraged by injury. It's just part of the game. And if you can't figure it out, or you can't go to PT because all the PTs tell you CrossFit's dangerous, reach out to WODprep. That's what we do. We're really fucking good at it. So you know what? I'll say it. We're the best. We're the best PTs in the CrossFit space, 100%. So, all right. Enjoy, guys. Thank you so much. Again, if you have any questions, CJ at WODprep.com. I'm always available to answer anything and to hop on calls. Yeah. Have a great day. Come back in 2.5 hours for me and John to talk actual sport CrossFit stuff.